And I'd almost say the definition of community doesn't change, only the execution strategy of the principle that you wish to enforce. So if a
Fair enough.
community is made up of connected individuals who agree on shared values, who, have a commonality built on trust and goals, that doesn't change. But how you might strategically impart that knowledge and education has to change based on the environment.
Yep.
And I think that's something that we sometimes neglect, is we think that the same fruit should feed all, versus, man, you got to make sure you're paying attention to allergies, consumption levels, who's already at a deficit that needs more, or it might come up short.
Yep, totally agree. And I want to open it up to others that we haven't heard from as much.
Mr. Lyon, if I could ask a question to Ruben. If you think about the Haitian community, it's kind of, you've unified, you've had a lot of success of bringing people together and accomplishing big things, right? And as I say, it's a little bit different in the Haitian community than probably the native African-American community. Can you talk about why you think that there's differences there, like where it comes, because there was still a slavery background, but I see a different type of unity. So could you speak to it a little bit? Because I'm just curious.
Yeah, I certainly can. I think that it's not really a matter of being organized, but we have to have something for the people to all come for. They need a common goal. So when we created the festival, when I put it together, the main purpose was to showcase the Caribbean culture, the vibe that it can bring everybody together. So that motivated people to come out. So if you have a goal, whether it's for African American, Caribbean American, Haitian, Jamaican, if that goal is unified and it's something they motivate and passionate about, and it will definitely show up. So I think we have to, when we formulate our plans, let's say we're going to keep it for ourselves or pass it on to somebody, they have to have that passion behind it. If you're just willy-nilly doing it, the passion's not going to be there. You're not going to get the level of response that you're looking for. So have the passion that it requires, and people will show up for it. But like I was telling somebody today, I get double dose of what you guys are getting, because not only am I Black, but I'm Haitian. So I'm from a different background culture, right? My heritage, the accent that I have, and then on top of it, I'm a Black man in America. So I'm getting double dose of whatever you guys are getting. So you have to have that extra passion for people to attract to whatever it is.
Hey, Quinn, Matt, any thoughts, ideas?
I'm hearing like a lot of great perspectives, and I'm still processing exactly how I feel about everything. And I say that because I hear like a lot of great points about how other communities have done like a lot of great things, and I hear how we should have like a great beacon of light. And I think where mine is falling is ultimately, how do we create something that is going to be great for the entire Black community? And the reason why I say that is because at this point, I feel like the Black community has begun to like fragment in so many different interests. You have like the political interest, you have the people who are like more into religion, you have the people who are like in the trans community, people who are strictly about business, the people who become like that holistic, like health conscious and spiritual and that group. So I'm not speaking on a solution. I'm just thinking around like, how do you create something that's appetizing towards like the overlap, right? How do you create something that they all want to attract to, that they all can find benefit in for that?
I can say something to that. I think it's the blueprint that we already have. How are we 13
right.
Black male? How are we so successful in our life? What's that blueprint? It doesn't have to be exactly what we did, but if we speak passionately about how we got to our level of success, it doesn't matter if it's religion, business, whatever the case may be, it can motivate the group. It can motivate the mass.
And some of it has to be the realization that all does not work. We just have to be understanding that it won't be all. And it's okay to say what moves the needle the most. And this takes me back to what I was referring to earlier. Capital, influence, and power, repeat. capital, influence, and power repeat. And then if you can find a way to get enough people to focus on those three things, you can then talk about what Jerome was saying was when you pool everybody's capital, everybody's influence, and everybody's power together, you can then really make impactful change wherever you direct that energy. Trying to figure out, hey, what are the biggest areas that we want to impact? Okay, now how do we increase our capital, our influence, and our power? And then really going after that. And that might mean that the person that wants to garden and do homeopathic remedies is not on this particular journey, but we can still put you a little website on the resource page, but it might not be a part of the brand or a part of the goal of increasing homeopathic adoption within the Black community, or it might just be a sub-bullet, but not trying to do a one-size-fits-all. And being okay with that, I think, is really important to move people forward, or you could end up with analysis paralysis.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to pause there for a second and really just take that in, because I think we've touched on that high level of the how in terms of capital, influence, power, repeat, and the understanding that it's not going to be for everybody. And that immediately takes me to the what, right? What is that agenda? What are those things that are going to move the needle? Because I feel comfortable enough at an initial conversation to start moving in the general direction of telling those narratives through the art. I'm confident enough that you guys are now thinking already how you guys can increase your capital, influence, and power, how you can galvanize your community, right? Whatever that means. But then what are those things that we're going to want to communicate as to, hey, these are our goals?
Now, again, you'd have to break that down by that target audience. If you're talking about middle school or high school, there might be different goals. And if you're asking, like, talking about an overarching goal, that might be different. Maybe clarify, are you referring to the goal of the entire organization or initiative?
Well, not goal, not a singular goal, right? What are our expectations as a Black community? Now, I understand all the fragments, but just bear with me for a second.
I think
what are those demands? Go ahead, Jerome.
maybe we think about it in a different way. What are the outcomes? What would we expect to see
Fair enough.
after we work on this for 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, right? 5 years, we have larger businesses in each metropolitan area, which, I mean, let me not completely discount the success of Black people and Black businesses out there. We're doing it, right? Like, we're not just helpless and rolling in the street. But what I'm saying is, like, I'm trying to get to major large corporations that are name recognizable and not just one, like Kellogg or Merck, that we have accomplished. If we could get a couple of them in major cities, then there's going to be change. I think that in order to do that, though, and I'm going to add an acronym to yours, Ira: focus, opportunity, and risk. We need to be able to identify what the opportunities are, right? So that we can actually focus on them. And the last thing that we have to understand is that it's not going to be safe. It's going to be risky. You're going to have to put it out there to be possibly losing it all in order to make a large change like that.
You touched on two things for me, Jerome. Part of the how in terms of focus, opportunity, and risk, but part of the what that I want to start at least brainstorming about was the outcomes, right? X number of Fortune 500 companies, right? That will go into that capital accumulation that leads to influence and power, right? I think of at a bare minimum another outcome like truly equitable treatment under the law, right? And I think, Ira, to your point, that's broad enough to then be broken down. So what does that mean for the middle schooler, the high schooler, the college kid, the blue collar laborer, any and everybody? But that's generic enough that everybody can get behind it from their own perspective. Any other outcomes like that can be molded to fit different communities or different situations?
I don't really have an outcome, but I'll point out just an observation with the current environment. Clearly, with the tension between the U.S. and China, there's going to be opportunities coming back onshore for manufacturing. That's going to like come back onshore. So possibly the outcome is that we have Black manufacturers, because those are the things that people don't want to do. People want to do the technology and high-end jobs and things like that, but people don't want to do the manufacturing jobs for efficiently at low cost to compete with places overseas. So maybe one of the outcomes is that we do figure out a way to bring manufacturing back to the Black community. We give a lot of people like opportunities.
No, good idea. Keep them coming. Any other thoughts?
I don't know how it shows up, but there is this piece. I mean, if it's capital, influence, power, repeat, there is this piece about, man, what the heck is capital? What is net worth? There's something around this financial literacy, not from an understanding standpoint, but also from an appreciation of the value of being financially literate. Because, when you look at the statistics and the data, we're probably one of the few communities that do not recycle the dollar repeatedly, either within our community or the amount of time that a dollar stays in our account, our pocket, or our pocketbook is probably 75% lower than other demographics. And so how do we, as a community, better appreciate the power that every dollar gives us in terms of choice, and how that $1, when invested, spent, or saved wisely, has the ability to create more dollars? When I was coming up, we did not spend a lot of time talking about that. Like, it helped me make a lot of poor decisions when I was young, and I've seen plenty of people repeat that same cycle, but then also be awakened when they get that knowledge that I think we sometimes just take for granted that it's just inherent.
I think you hit a key point. Recycling that dollar within the community is critical, but I think clearly, to go back to on a previous point, we need to digitize it. We need to track the Black dollar with an app, right? So that we can share it between businesses and track the Black dollar and see it come out to this manufacturer, hold them accountable that they've spent it with other Black people. And then you'll have something that goes nationwide and people could jump on it and join to it. That's something.
So here's what I'd like to add to the point of keeping the dollars in our community. How do we break that down to someone that really don't understand that particular statement? How?
I think that's exactly where you start with the outcome in mind, and then you work backwards. Because I think, one, I don't have the answer. And then two, I think it would take some reflective time and research, because it is a cycle. No different than the crabs in the bucket is a cycle. Mistrust is a cycle. Abusive or dysfunctional families. When you think about, why does the Black community have so many single moms? That's a cycle. Poverty, it's a cycle. Yeah. You really got to dig into the neuroscience. You got to dig into the historical data, and then you got to dig into the root cause. And some of it is grounded in the system of oppression or inequity. It's grounded in the laws, in the policing. It's not one pill. It's a bunch of systems, just working against progress.
So Ira, I started smiling because I think I've already started laying the groundwork for one way to try to articulate, and that is the art. So you remember Soul Piece, how it shows up with Maddie painting?
Yep.
And then it shows up with you holding it in the next panel. To your point about starting from the beginning and then watching that dollar circulate panel after panel after panel with a new scene, so you see how that dollar impacts each individual family, individual community, what have you, I think is one way to do it in an abstract manner that allows the viewer to make those connections without us explicitly having to do it in that medium. Now, I think there are other mediums that we can run in parallel where that message is more explicit to try to reach as many people as possible. I'm going to take a stab at it. I'll bring it back to you guys. Let me know feedback and all that, but that's something that I can act on right now.
You guys remember the old Saturday morning I Am a Bill cartoon?
Yeah.
And maybe I'm dating myself here, but that's how I learned what a bill was. Those kind of things. Like I said, I go back to the education. So, like Ruben, you're like, how do you do that? the same thing that Ira said. I wasn't taught about budgets or how to handle a dollar until, I got a little bit older. And then it was like, hey, you got an allowance, you save half, you spend half. If we teach kids how to handle money, you get them to the NBA, you get them to the NFL, all of a sudden they went from nothing to millionaires, and then they're blown out of the league. They don't have any money. Why? Because no one ever taught them how to budget. No one ever taught them that, hey, this dollar's only going to be here today. It could be gone tomorrow. Save for the future. So teaching the kids how to handle money. What is money? Teaching them how to flow. I love the concept of using the artwork in the panels. Teach them, hey, this is $1. You got it today. This is all you could do with it. If you have $1 today and spend it on candy, what if you saved it till tomorrow? You could get double the candy. What if you save it till the weekend? Well, hey, now you get a bag of candy. So when they start looking at that, it's like, okay, I don't satisfy myself right now. And that's where we are as a society, is satisfying ourselves right now. No one is willing to sacrifice, or they've been taught, I should say, to sacrifice for tomorrow. Because you hear the whole thing, tomorrow's not promised to you. Well, you're right. But what if tomorrow shows up and I don't have anything for tomorrow? So, using the panel, using that to educate the kids, educate the next generation. As you layer it on, you can then, turn it to speak to the audience at the age and the level that they are, whichever community that's in. You can morph that artwork, morph the message from the characters to fit that community.
I think you make a great point, Andre. I sent you a text that has a cartoon related to social inequities, and it was done at a very elementary level, but it still was even relatable as an adult because they broke the principles down so simply. So Andre, I think you're spot on with leveraging the artwork to teach simple concepts. And it starts with the seed planted. And that's the thing, is you don't have to go out here and be Bill Gates tomorrow. But if you catch that thing a couple of times, that seed that's planted, when that dollar comes, will have you taking at least a second thought.
Yeah, and I like that idea as far as tracking it, but I also want to bring it to a point of, you got to kind of think about those things that we spend our money on a every monthly basis. Is it food, utilities? What is it? Because when you think about it, if we're talking about recycling the black dollar, we can think about black grocery stores, we can think about black restaurants, but we don't own any utility service. We don't own any cell phone service. We don't own any electricity service. We don't own any of the bare essential utilities, water. I mean, any of those things that you can think about. That's what most of our money is actually going to, if we think about it. So even the mortgages, even the banks, that's where our money is really going to. If we can recycle the black dollar, there's no way that we can recycle it if we are giving up majority of our paycheck away. Now we can think about, like I said, the smaller things, clothing lines, restaurants, food, transportation even maybe. But if we would think about the true things that we spend our money on, we don't hold a stake in any of that.
It's absolutely necessary that we kind of get to that. I think that's the point. But to the point of disenfranchisement I was making earlier, if you don't own the land, you can't dig a coal mine. You can't generate electricity. If you don't own the land, you can't generate the cotton to make jeans, or it's difficult there. But the interesting thing about it is, what we do have is this digital age and this transitional space age that's coming up. And maybe we can get on top of some of these things that are going to be staples for the next 100 years, right? And so we need to start thinking about getting ahead of the curve a little bit, like food delivery and Uber apps and networking, DoorDash, they're coming to COVID and things like that. Maybe we can get in that mix in a little way, right? Even if we can't go back, and then we can go back and reclaim some of those hard assets that are staples. But yeah, you make a great point.
Yeah, I can't thank you guys enough just for engaging in this conversation. It's been something that's been heavy on my heart. I've spoken to most, if not all of you, and so I know it's weighing on you guys as well. And I just want to encourage us to be that change that pushes this thing forward sustainably. I think we have the momentum. I don't know if we'll ever get another time as ripe as this. I'm hoping we don't, right? For life or death reasons. So I want to make and take the most advantage of it as we can. So I just want to thank you guys for the thought partnership.
Hey, no doubt, man. Thanks for putting it together.
Okay.
Yes, sir. I'll catch you guys later, and look out for some artwork over the next coming months.
All right, cool, man.
Hey, thanks, Alon.
Later, guys.